Hi there, and welcome to Season AY, the platform where we speak truth to power. Um, we're just going to redo this particular video. I did it earlier on, but the volume was low, so I'm going to cover it again. In this broadcast, we're exposing the propaganda that the mainstream media like BBC, Voice of America, France 24, and others, the propaganda that they engage in. And we need to expose that because many Africans, all too often, they take the word of those from those mainstream media as gospel or as the word that they should believe in and trust. And in actual fact, it's full of propaganda designed for them, for as an African, to turn against their own government, to benefit the colonials. So here's a perfect example of what I mean. Today being the 23rd of August, fourth day in the second day in the Yoruba calendar, Ojo Orunmila Ifa, we have a 4 day week. Just to mention that. Okay, so just to do a one quick tiny little change here. I am going to test the system. I hope it works. We need it to be really functioning and tip top and be where it should be. I think, yep, we got it. Okay, so going back to the main topic. Before we go ahead, please go ahead and subscribe to Season Ewa on YouTube. Here's what you need to do: subscribe to Season Ewa on YouTube, hit the notification button, give us thumbs up, and help us reach more people. Yeah, we've been having problems with the volume. It's been low of late, but I'm hoping that we have rectified that now. I'm hoping that that is something that is now properly addressed. So I do apologize for that. We've been doing some work to try and address that issue, and I'm hoping that it will stabilize. So do let me know if you can hear me loud and clear as well. So let's carry on. The BBC, they were saying that Burkina Faso suspends BBC over their so-called human rights watch report based on alleged mass killings. It's important to understand that the Human Rights Watch are a US-based organization, so it means that they're actually working for the US and putting negative information on into the countries that they want to influence in the way they want to allow for the extraction of mineral resources from African countries. So they are just a propaganda unit of the U.S. Government. We need to be very clear about this. They have no business talking about what is going on the African continent, except, of course, we know they are trying to give a false narrative, get the people in their own land to turn against their government to allow for continued exploitation and extraction of African resources. So let's go into that. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. They're going to be using words in particular way that will make you think, oh, they're actually out for your interest, but they're not. They are subtly changing words around, moving it from one position to the next. It could mean something if it's put in the right context. In the wrong context, you give a different narrative. So here you see they got the military there with weapons and then they say Human Rights Watch report published on Thursday accused Burkina Faso of army of massacring civilians earlier this year. Now, what Burkina Faso has done is that they identified that the French military bases and all of the foreign bases they've been training camps for the terrorists that are being used to cause havoc. So what they've done is to now identify those training camps. Of course, they've sent the French and all of their foreign countries packing, except and they're working closely with Russia, which is a good thing. And what they've now done is they are now highlighting and neutralizing the terror groups that were funded and armed by the French military bases when they were there. So because they wanted to stop this mass destruction of African artifacts and everything else. I mean, this is all covert plans to make sure we forget, we never know who we were, and we are. I've got a picture where they're destroying old ancient Mali buildings, for example, in Mali, and this guy saying, God is great and everything else. This is an orchestrated plan. They don't want us to have any history. They don't want us to know we have many resources. So they are resorting to propaganda to fulfill their narrative. Let's read on. So it says here, I mean, this Hafsa Khalil, BBC News, is obviously working for the BBC. So he's projecting their propaganda. And what that does is when you hear it from an African person, you will think it's the truth, but it's not. But it's being used and it needs to wake up as well. Burkina Faso suspended BBC and U.S. public broadcaster Voice of America over the coverage of a report accusing its army of mass killings. You see, this is what they're saying. They're trying to say that the army is engaged in mass killings. In actual fact, the army is actually protecting the citizens from the actions of the terrorists that were trained in the French and the foreign, the colonial bases. See, they're not telling you the story as they should. They are leaving key sections out, and then they're putting the narrative out that'll make you think, oh, no, we have to turn against them. This is all designed because they're not happy with the fact that Burkina Faso has got military that's working for the interest of the people, preventing them from extracting resources. This is the real situation. Let us dig in a little further. Do let me know if the voice sounds better as I'm going along, and leave comments. Thank you. The report by Human Rights Watch, broadcasts have been stopped and the website of both organizations banned for 2 weeks, officials said. This was back in April. I think this is probably back on now, and they're being heavily monitored, rightly so. And those of us who have got a social media platform like mine, we need to be the eyes and ears of the three countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. We have to be the eyes and ears for Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traore, Assimi Goita of Mali, and General Chiani of Niger. We have to be the ones, getting the right message out across the whole world, because we cannot trust the mainstream media. They are full of propaganda, as evidenced by what we're showing you here. So the reports by the Human Rights Watch, so-called Human Rights Watch, again, it's another propaganda arm from within the U.S. trying to change the mental narrative of the people to turn against their people, and we need to be checking that. They are just an extra arm of the propaganda coming from the U.S. They're tied to the Voice of America as well. So we need to be very clear about that. Now, a U.S.-based group, see, they're US-based, accused the Burkina Faso military of massacring 223 civilians in February. Not the case. Again, keep remembering, there was a high incidence of terrorist activity all over Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. And the so-called military bases of the French and the other colonials were used to train as training camps for these terrorists that were wreaking havoc. And what they are doing, what the government is doing, is stopping the terrorists from actually going into the country and destroying people's lives and unaliving people. And that is the real narrative they don't want you to get. And of course, it stopped the West from looting our resources, because they were sent to key areas to destabilize, especially where they found resources. They were causing problems there, so that they will be the leading front of the clearing of those areas, and then the French forces will go in with their trucks and start looting resources behind them. These are the things that is really going on. Okay. Now, the military has been in power in West Africa countries since 2022. It is not commented on the Human Rights Watch allegation. They're just they're a propaganda arm of the U.S. Pure and simple. The Army Director of Communications said he would get back to the BBC if and when they make a statement. In a statement on Thursday, Burkina Faso's media regulator warned all media outlets against covering the report, threatening sanctions. Statement state-owned media reported. Yes, they should be. We need to control the media because we know the media is another arm of the colonial control on African minds, and these are the things we need to remove. We need to have to make sure that we report what is going on in Africa in a true reflection from an African perspective. Now, um, so go ahead. BBC spokesman said this suspension reduces BBC's ability to reach audiences with independent and accurate news. We will continue to report on the region in the public interest and without fear. Let me be very clear. When they're talking about public interest, they're not talking about the public interest of Africans. They are reflecting. They are trying to impose on Africans the public interest of the colonials and the people in those colonial countries in ensuring that they continue to have access to our resources at the expense of the Africans. They are not doing this reporting of public interest for the benefit of Africans. They are doing it for the benefit of the colonials and the people of the colonials as well. Very important to understand that subtlety. Now, in an article, Voice of America said it stands by its report about Burkina Faso and intends to continue to fully, fairly cover activities in the country. You see, they're trying to find means way now they're going to try and turn the people against the government. By the way, as you all know, the government is supported by the people. They've got extra 5 years. I'll come up with that report in due course also. Don't forget, as you're watching, please follow us on TikTok. We have over 30,000 followers on there. And also, please subscribe to us on both TikTok and YouTube. We have about 3,700 subscribers. We'd like to get to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. With your help, no doubt we'll get there. So please do share this podcast. And of course, we'd like you to subscribe to us on TikTok also. Okay, so they say again, keep remembering when you hear Human Rights Watch, it's a U.S. And it's just simply a U.S. propaganda. They allege that Burkina Faso military unalived 179 people in Soro and 44 others nearby non-Din villages of the country's north. This is simply not true. The military has been neutralizing the terror groups funded, armed, and protected in the military bases of the colonials that have now been pushed out. And they are now clearing them out to prevent them from wreaking further havoc on the people. You see, Burkina Faso is building, creating polytechnics to get to be able to have engineers to build skyscrapers and high bridges, in his country. He's used funds to buy tractors to actually feed, to have farming, to be able to grow agriculture in Burkina Faso. Something that's never happened under the so many years of the French military bases, saying they are going to provide peace. No, they're actually creating this destruction and due to what's the word I'm looking for now? Destruction and displacement and war situation to allow for them to extract the resources. I'll keep reiterating that point. This is why this is clearly a propaganda. And they're not happy that the French are clearly very, very afraid that they cannot have access to those resources that doesn't belong to them. And the people who rightly own it are now being given access and opportunity to exploit those resources to their benefit. He's opened, Ibrahim Traore has opened a bank now whereby the funds, any monetary funds they create is tied to the resources, i.e. gold. So the gold is going to be staying in the country, and that is what they don't want. The French they don't have any gold anywhere in the land, and yet they're the fifth largest gold reserves in the entire world. Nobody's prepared to explain that. That is clear exploitation of African resources, and this is why I'm saying this is a propaganda. I'm giving you evidence after evidence, fact after fact after fact, and I can provide evidence if you doubt what I'm saying. Okay. Now, it said the massacre was believed to be in retaliation by the army, which accused villagers of aiding armed Islamist fighters. Let us think about that. The fighters, what have they done? They have gone in and been targeting these same villages. That's what has been happening. So there's no way the government will actually confront the villagers. the villagers were forced. They're not willing participants with the terrorists. They've been forced by many of them. We have instances of that, many instances of that happening in Nigeria with the Boko Haram. So what they're saying here is clearly a falsehood. This is why we're saying we're exposing the propaganda of the BBC. Anyway, and Voice of America and all the mainstream media. We can no longer trust what they're saying. Very important we state that. So the Human Rights Watch, again, is just an arm, a propaganda arm of the U.S. Don't trust anything they're saying. The mass killings country was army abuse in nearly a decade. You see, they're trying to project onto them. They're saying the Human Rights Watch, again, a U.S. propaganda arm from the U.S. They come up with the words worst army abuse in nearly a decade because they turned a narrative to displace and dislodge the intellectual realignment that's taking place right now, that has taken place in Burkina Faso under Ibrahim Traore, Assimi Goïta, in Mali, and in General Chiani in Niger. What they've done is not a military junta, it is an intellectual realignment. And it's important we use those words as Africans. We must reject the assertion, the attempt to assert that what has happened is actually military junta. No, it's not a junta. It's an intellectual realignment. They looked at what was being done to their people in the name of exploiting our resources and pretending to provide peace whilst they're taking away our resources and impoverishing us. And they took an intellectual decision to actually stop all of that. And they've been successful and they will continue to be successful. And we Africans must support them in making sure that success carries on. Okay, so that attempt of saying what's army abuse in nearly a decade is a fraudulent, it's a clear propaganda by the Human Rights Watch. They shouldn't be allowed anywhere in Africa on the basis of the evidence I'm providing to you right now. So supporters of the military junta, no, they are not. They are intellectual realignment, and they have the right to criticize the propaganda arm, the BBCs, the CNNs, the Voice of America. They are all of those mainstream propaganda media. They need to be gone. We don't want them on our soil because they've done enough damage, and it's time Africans wake up. And the people of Niger and Burkina Faso and Mali support the intellectual realignment as evidenced by what I'm about to show you shortly. Okay, so there now it says they obviously Burkina Faso, they suspended French daily Le Monde, Jour Afrique magazine, and French TV channels. Rightly so, and France 24. Rightly so, because they are propaganda, using them to actually get the people to believe, to falsely believe that France is there for supporting the interest of Africans on their continent. In actual fact, they are what the French has been using to psychologically confuse the people, make them believe that the French is working for them. But it's all been exposed. The people have come out en masse and saying they want the French out of their country. But this is not what the BBC and the Voice of America will put out there because it doesn't fit their narrative. And that's why we're saying we are exposing the propaganda of the BBC, the Voice of America. As Africans, that is what we must do relentlessly on all platforms, in all areas. Continue to expose their falsehood. The Human Rights Watch is nothing but a propaganda arm of the US. Human Rights Group, the European Union, and the UN. You see, all of those bodies, the UN has nothing to say. Africa has the largest block of countries, and we have no UN security vote. So the UN is an arm used to exploit Africa. The UN trucks have been used to load up gold and diamond and things from the Democratic Republic of Congo. So we don't trust the EU. The EU have set up African Union designed to keep Africa serving being a puppet. The leaders of the African Union, in the African Union, they are puppets of the EU. We don't trust any of them. And the Human Rights Group, they are all just there it's like a mouthpiece. They're not really there to give you the true narrative. You will only get the true narrative about what's going on in Africa from the Africans like myself who are committed to seeing a better Africa grow. And we need to banish all of this propaganda from the African continent. Enough is enough. So anyway, that's in a nutshell. I want to just show you something. Here, I want you to read this. So, Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore granted blank check to remain in power. The majority of the Burkina citizens support the country's military regime. That is clear. You see, this is the real situation that you're reading. So do not believe in the propaganda of the BBC, Voice of America, or any of those. We need to be looking at source your information from platforms like myself, Citizen AY, the platform where we speak truth to power. So you see here, it says briefly, I'm going to read to you this bit here. In Burkina Faso on May 25, 2024, a national conference took place to establish country's new political agenda. The conference concluded that with a 5-year extension to its military transition, thus dashing any hopes. Anyway, they're talking about democracy. Democracy has never worked in Africa. Democracy is designed to exploit and extract resources from African countries to directly into the hands of the colonials. That is what democracy is about, and we're tired of that. And we support this intellectual realignment. Thank you so much for listening. Please don't forget, subscribe to Citizen AY on YouTube, hit the notification button, give us thumbs up, and also subscribe to us on TikTok, and also follow us on TikTok as well. How do you find this news? Do you agree with us that it is time that Africans, we portray our own news? We do not allow others to portray a negative energy on the continent no longer. It is time we take that action collectively. What are your thoughts on this? Let's hear your views. You're, of course, watching Citizen AY, the platform where we speak truth to power. Let me know if the volume is much better now. I do apologize. I've just been trying to adjust the settings and hoping it's much more better. Do let me know, and I'll be watching it myself as well. Thank you, and let's hear your comments. Thank you, and bye for now.